Good evening and welcome to the Pioneer Community Center. Today is May 25th, 2023, and this is the meeting of the Urban Renewal Budget Committee. And we're convening the meeting, and I'd like to do roll call and any introductions as necessary.
Committee member Julie Hernandez. Here. Committee member William Peterson.
Present.
Committee member William Gifford is excused. Committee member Casey Flush.
Here.
Committee member Andy Smith. Here. Committee member Kyle Arnhart.
Here.
Committee member Lori Arenello.
Here.
Committee member Doug Neely.
Here.
Committee member Sean Cross.
Here.
Committee member Adam Morrow.
Here.
Committee member Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Committee member Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Committee member Rocky Smith.
Here.
And committee member Denise McGregor.
Present. So thank you everyone, and to our new members, again, welcome. We are very appreciative of your time and also welcoming back people that I saw last week. Welcome and thank you again for your time as well. So the first thing on our agenda is the election of chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary, and then we have draft minutes. So are there any nominations for secretary? I don't think you really have to take notes, so don't. If you think that there was extra work.
I nominate Lori as secretary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other nominations, or would you like to have the nominations be closed?
The nominations be closed.
All right, all those in favor of supporting the election of Lori Arenello as secretary, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Election of a vice chair. Do you have any nominations for vice chair?
I'll move Iowa Amhart. I messed that up, I think. Yeah, Kyle Amhart for vice chair.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Nope. Okay, the nominations are closed then. All those in favor of supporting Kyle Arnhart as vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Okay, one abstention. Ms. Nomi, very harmless. No. And now we have nominations for the role of chair.
Nominate Denise McGregor.
I move Julie Hernandez.
So there's two nominations. Is there a second for either one of them? Do you want to be chair for your first meeting? So we do generally have some elected and some non-elected, so it's okay.
That's fine.
But we don't have any seconds.
All second, Julie Hernandez.
Second. Is there any further nominations? So I got nominated, but I don't have a second, so I can't. Well, actually, I can second myself, I guess. So anyway, so if you would like to do it, that's fine. Do you want to do it?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor of electing Julia Hernandez as chair of the Urban Renewal Budget Committee, signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Oh, yes, thank you, Michael. All those opposed. So before I turn it over to you, I want to preface, we do have some public comments. I will give those to you, and we can follow on those folks after we do the minutes. But just for the record, we are discussing the urban renewal budget specifically, not the urban renewal program or agency, just the budget part. And we will be taking up other topics when we meet as an urban renewal commission. So
Public comment is public comment.
Yeah, we're going there.
Speak about whatever you want.
We got minutes. Want to turn this over to Julia? We're going to get double things. I can. Yeah, I'm taking it. By the way, it's a very special gavel. It was made by one of our former planning commissioners, Jim Hall, and it's very personal to me since I was a personal friend of Jim Hall's. for many years, and he was a woodworker. And so it's very privileged for us to be able to have that. It's just a little juicy fun fact about it. He's not just a regular guy.
The power.
I was not expecting this coming here today.
Well, you can say no.
Good, yep.
Now it's approval of the minutes and then public comments after that. Do you have your agenda?
Yeah. Okay, so approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from May 20th, 2021.
Second.
All right. Committee member Julie Hernandez.
Here.
Oh, to approve the minutes.
Oh, I approve.
Committee member William Peterson.
Yes.
Committee member Casey Flesh. Committee member Andy Smith.
Abstain.
Committee member Kyle Arnhart.
Yes.
Committee member Lori Arinello.
Yes.
Committee member Doug Neely.
We'd abstain.
Committee member Sean Cross.
Yes.
Committee member Adam Morrow.
Aye.
Committee member Frank O'Donnell. Committee member Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Committee member Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And committee member Denise McGrath.
Aye.
Next, we'll be moving on to public comments. I have public comments here from James Nisita.
James to see. And look, Leah, the clock is right there.
Good evening, Renewal Budget Committee members. I'm James Nisita. I live in Oregon City. I have a line item request for this budget, and I'd like to give some background on that request. As you are all probably aware, last fall, the Court of Appeals upheld the decision of the Clackamas County Circuit Court to invalidate Section 59E of the Charter. And in the opinion, there is some question of whether the city charter of Oregon City can control the urban renewal agency. And when I started thinking about that, I realized that there is a very significant part of the charter that I think the urban renewal agency has applied kind of on autopilot, has never really given it serious thought. And that is this. And I've looked over all of the ordinances that created the urban renewal agency, and it does not speak to who hires the legal counsel that serves this body, the Urban Renewal Budget Committee and the Urban Renewal Agency. In the charter, it's the city manager that hires the city attorney. But if this is an independent agency under state law, then that provision in the city charter does not control the urban renewal agency. And that's very important because, I've talked about this for well over a decade, and people, their eyes glaze over when I talk about it. I think there's a problem with the fact that the city manager controls the city attorney at the city. I think that turns the city attorney into the city manager's advocate, and that the elected officials and appointed officials do not get unbiased legal advice. They get advocacy on the position that the city manager wants to advance on any political question or legal question or policy matter. The urban renewal agency the urban renewal agency has, through its bylaws, the opportunity to clarify that question, which it's really silent on. And also in the ordinances that create the urban renewal agency, it's silent on that question too. And I think there are very important ethical considerations on getting that exact question clarified as to who should control the hiring and firing and who is the client of the urban renewal agency. I'd like to request a line item that an independent consultant working under the URA Executive Committee or Chair, hire an independent attorney to develop an ordinance to resolve that question, either through a city commission ordinance or URA bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have public comment from Paul Edgar.
Good evening, and thank you. Paul Edgar, Oregon City. As an ex or a former Urban Renewal Commissioner myself, I've been tracking and watching urban renewal for a long, long time and been part of the decisions of how money has been spent and what has been invested. I'm concerned with this current budget and the cost as we flitter away, a technical term, flitter away monies. And we have little to show for all of the monies that have came in. And I'm talking about what is of greatest need for the public, the people who have put the money, the owners of properties of Oregon City have put money into effectively this. They are owners of the urban renewal. And it is my opinion that as I looked at the budget, I see like $220,000 in annual administrative expense. I think that's outrageous. Just outrageous. How we are tacking along that much money with what we're doing is irresponsible. Then I look at $120,000 for legal expense on an annual basis, and I'm saying, wow, we haven't put any product out. We're not doing anything. We had a vote to shut it down, and we're spending $120,000 annually for legal expenses and have that on this budget. I think that's irresponsible. Then I go down here and I look at the line items, and for you to try to advance this budget to the Urban Renewal Agency or Commission and have these line items on here that you can't even realize because of the ballot, makes any suggestion that this budget as written today is irresponsible. And anyone with common sense, I'm not a genius. I did sell financial systems for corporate world in business automation. I understand these things, and I've been a successful businessman myself. All I can turn around and say, we need to make improvements. This budget as written should be dead on arrival. Thank you.
Next, we will move on from the agenda, budget amendment from Budget Officer.
Right. Thank you. Evening, Budget Committee or Renewal Budget Committee. The Urban Renewal Agency's 2023-2025 proposed biennial budget is balanced and has been prepared in accordance with Oregon budget law for the period July 1, 23 through June 30th, 2025. The total budget is $15,929,600. The agency is a separate legal entity from the City of Oregon City that is established under state law. Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 457-035, Sub 1 creates a public body, corporate, and politic to be known as the Urban Renewal Agency for each municipality. The Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission is responsible for providing oversight for the district as specified in the Downtown North End Urban Renewal Plan. On November 8, 2016, voters approved Measure 3-514, which is intended to limit the use of urban renewal in Oregon City. On July 18, 2017, Circuit Court determined that the measure is preempted by Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 457. The court found that the measure is inconsistent with state law and the agency's expenditures are not restricted. The decision was appealed to the Court of Appeals. On November 15th, 2022, the Court of Appeals declared that a portion of the measure, specifically Part E of Section 59 in the Oregon City Municipal Code, is unenforceable as preempted by state law. The Urban Renewal Commission approved the 11th Amendment to the Urban Renewal Plan on December 21st, 2022. The amendment updated the project plan to 3 primary projects, which are the Rossman Landfill, Clackamas Cove, and the Stimson property, and several secondary projects, including the County Courthouse and Main Street, improvements to the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center, Downtown Railroad Quiet Zone, and development of the vacant 12th and Main Street property. On May 16, 2023, voters rejected Measure 3-597, which requested the approval for the urban agency to borrow up to $44 million for projects in the urban renewal plan. The proposed budget presented reflects a status quo budget while recognizing that the Urban Renewal Commission has yet to determine the future of the urban renewal agency after learning the outcome of the election. In spite of this, the responsibility of the Urban Renewal Budget Committee is to review the proposed budget and determine the tax levy, the uses of all resources, and approve the budget. Subsequently, the Urban Renewal Commission has the responsibility to review the approved budget, revise if necessary, and adopt the budget. While the timing of the election in May, the requirement to adopt the budget by June 30th, and the publication of mandatory newspaper notices for budget committee meetings all complicate the forward process, the Urban Renewal Agency must still meaningfully determine the future. At a minimum, the declaration of the tax increment for the 2023, 2024, and 2024 and 2025 tax years will determine if the agency continues to collect the revenue towards the projects identified above. The second key choice of the Urban Renewal Agency is the use of new tax increment revenue as well as existing funds on hand. So the proposed budget is funded by total biennial revenues of $6.7 million, excluding the beginning fund balance, and 95% of which are from property taxes. Revenues increased by $68,000 or 1% over the previous budget. Tax increment increases are budgeted at 2% for each of the biennium. Other revenue sources include income from rental properties and investment. Projected spending for the biennium totals $15.86 million, is comprised of minimum operating and legal costs as well as capital projects. Finally, the budget includes costs to operate agency-owned rental properties and opening contingency of $640,000 is available for our appropriation to projects pending the Urban Renewal Commission review. The downtown North End Urban Renewal Plan includes an estimated debt limit of $130.1 million as a max for urban renewal investment. So really, there's a lot to be discussed between the Budget Committee and the actual Urban Renewal Commission themselves. When we talked about this, one of the key decisions here is related to the tax levy options. So historically, we've levied the maximum amount based on the results of the election. There are options to levy less than the maximum amount. And here are examples of, if we were to levy 75%, 50%, 25%, what the incremental assessed value would be, the tax levy, and the budget revenue generated from each of those scenarios. Really, this is for discussion for the commission or for the budget committee to work through as we review the budget here tonight. It would also be important to state that, as I discussed in the budget overview, the Court of Appeals did remove essentially Section 59E. There's been a petition before the Supreme Court to take that. We do not have a decision from the Supreme Court yet whether they're going to take up that petition. We expect it in the near future. There's also a second litigation against the agency, a motion that if there was no debt being paid, that the district should be closed. So that is being currently litigated. A component of that is Section 59. One of the arguments being put forward by the Urban Renewal Commission is that the entirety of Section 59 is not applicable or enforceable. The next trial date on that is June 13th, 2023. So we don't have answers to some of that outstanding litigation. So with that, really, the proposed budget includes the costs associated with agency administration. That would be my time, the economic development director's time, any time from community development, any time from public works. We obviously have ongoing litigation associated with the legal costs. And then the capital outlay is really a holding. If the Urban Renewal Commission decided that they wanted to move forward with any of the projects that have been identified in the 11th Amendment, either complying with the charter as written or pending results of the litigation, that is, if it were favorable in removing the limitations imposed through Section 59 of the charter, those funds would be available to be appropriated by the Urban Renewal Commission on specific projects. So, like I said, I think there's a lot of unknowns related to the results of the election, as well as the direction that the Urban Renewal Commission desires to take moving forward. So really, this budget is proposed to really get to that next step of what do we want to levy over the next 2 years as we work through, as the Urban Renewal Commission works through, what do they want to do with the district? I'd be happy to answer any questions or help facilitate the discussion.
You're clarifying that that question is specifically for the Urban Renewal Commission, correct?
I believe so. I mean, what to do with the district really does seem like an Urban Renewal Commission discussion and decision. Where does the Budget Committee and the Urban Renewal Commission kind of separate, and where are those, should the Budget Committee be making policy decisions that are really, I would think, are the purview of the Urban Renewal Commission themselves?
But we could take some input.
Of course, yes, of course.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. I guess the distinction here on the terms of the 2023-24 versus the 24-25, I assume that the assumption is that the 12,526,600 would be spent in that period. The fact that the resources drop. So if in fact the Urban Renewal Commission wants to go forward into the next biennium, why do we show the capital outlay so high in the first year and so low in the second?
There really isn't a particular magic formula behind that.
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. The question that as I understand it, is why is the capital outlay line item 12 million in the first year of the biennium and only 3 million in the second? It's really a biennial budget, so there really isn't a magic formula behind the timing. Presumably, this budget is intended to represent that capital projects would go forward. We know that there's a lot of lead time that goes into that. It could have been spread between the 2 years equally. It's not really.
Okay.
What it does illustrate, though, is that in year two, essentially, once the money is spent, that is on hand, year two basically represents $3 million budget, which is 1 year's worth of revenue being spent forward. So the commission the Urban Renewal Budget Committee can decide to.
So basically what we're really looking at is the biennium itself,
right?
Not so much the individual years.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
As the former chair of the Urban Renewal Commission and one who has delved deeply into this, what this group does tonight determines the very future of the Urban Renewal Commission. And I've thought about this a lot, and there's a spectrum of choices to be made. Those choices are continued, and this relates to what Mr. Conkle put up on the board. We can continue doing exactly what we've been doing, Mr. Edgar's comments, we're just accumulating money with no return, and it's being devalued due to inflation with nothing to show for it. We can reduce the TIF collection as has been proposed. That was proposed in a previous year, was not accepted, but I think it should be considered. We could also suspend the TIF collection for a year. We could collect nothing if we so chose. There's other decisions to be made. The commission probably has to do these. We could, or actually the effect of what decisions we make tonight would impact this. We could close the plan. We could say we don't want to collect any further monies, and then the Urban Renewal Commission, when they meet, can decide whether even to continue with the plan. That's an Urban Renewal Commission. That's not a budget thing, but the impact of what you decide in the budget would influence that decision. When you do that, in return, those funds gather to the other taxing entities, including Oregon City. So those funds that we've accumulated would be distributed, correct me if I'm wrong, and those funds that we normally would collect in the next 2 years would not be collected if we opted for a suspension of TIF collections or some number in between. I think there's a lot of decisions to be made here. You know, the people of Oregon City spoke on one issue. They didn't say close the Urban Renewal Commission or the plan. And I understand why that vote is the way it is. You know, the Urban Renewal Commission could come back, maybe I'm digressing a little, could propose a smaller project as a proof of concept and see where that goes. But tonight, the choices are what I said. Continue doing what you do. Full board collection with no projects allowed and money losing value. Reduce the TIF collections as proposed there. You could, I think as far as suspending the plan, that would be a commission decision.
I think so. And I think one thing we would, just as staff in thinking through these options, one more hypothetical scenario is, let's say the budget committee and the Urban Renewal Commission wanted to reduce the amount of TIF being collected for 2 years to see how the litigation happens and to reset what the commission wants to do. If the decision is that we're not sure that we want to close the district, we would recommend at least collecting some portion of the TIF. If you go to zero, you could probably make an argument that you're closing the district in the TIF revenue being collected. So we would recommend at least collecting, a minimum related to like the operating costs that have been identified. And then after 2 years, if you wanted to raise it back up, you could. If during those 2 years you decide you want to close it, that's a different track that we would go down at that point.
The operating costs, are they not the subject of the lawsuit? That the lawsuit says the only viable expenditure of funds is to service debt, not administrative. So we've got that to face too. I mean, maybe this is outside the scope of what we're doing tonight, but maybe it's just knowing too much.
Yeah.
There's decisions to be made tonight as to how much you allocate, but we have not accomplished anything.
For those that haven't been on this committee yet, what's TIF stand for?
Tax increment financing.
Thank
So
you.
this is how Urban Renewal, you want me to go in a little
No.
more? Okay.
I'm sitting here, I'm like, TIF, what could TIF be?
Well, I think you should, Tony. I think it has value. What is TIF as opposed to regular tax collections and how are they allocated? I think that has value to this group.
Do it
Please.
really quick.
So
So when the district was created, there was a certain amount of assessed value that all the taxing agencies were collecting revenue based off of. When the district was created, that amount was frozen. And in the years then that follow, that amount increases. And the amount above the frozen base is then taxed and collected as tax increment financing to fund the urban renewal agency. So it's kind of in a quick down and dirty explanation of how TIF functions within a district.
Remember this, the amount can increase through no input or effort of the urban renewal. It increases simply because your taxes are allowed to increase 3% a year, I believe is the number. Therefore, that value increases, therefore the urban renewal TIF take increases. Not because of anything we've succeeded at, just because of the mechanics of taxation every year.
Yes. I wanted to throw a proposal out on the table for consideration. First of all, because of the litigation, that's the reason that the line item is that way. So to our citizen, that's not outrageous. We would rather not be going to court, but we do have to defend ourselves and propose what we think is appropriate. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we own a number of properties that routine and ordinary maintenance needs to occur to them. And one of the things that I've had on my list is, after being at the Amtrak station several times, I walked around the building and made a list of, gee, that needs to be fixed, that needs to be fixed, that needs to be maintained. So I feel that we need to have some funds in that budget to take care of our rental properties that we have. We have property that's vacant and has to be mowed or landscaped or cleaned up. So we need to continue to do that. And as ongoing maintenance, we will hopefully be getting to some of those repair items that are at the Amtrak station. If you haven't been down there lately or taken the train, it needs a little TLC. But I wanted to propose that we have a discussion regarding reducing the levy option. I don't think at this time we need to collect the full amount. And I will say just, I do support urban renewal. I've worked in it for over 20 years. I know how it works. I've seen the results. And just because the measure didn't pass, it doesn't mean that the Urban Renewal Commission cannot zero in more closely and put its focus on the properties that it already owns, get them out on the market, get proposals and put them back on the tax rolls. And so I don't think that, other than just routine and ordinary maintenance, we need to collect the entire amount. I would recommend that we look at only collecting 25% at this point.
So that the numbers on the budget as presented, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with them, but for legal, admin, rental expenses and supplies would be $397,000. And so if we look at the chart that was up on the different amounts that we could choose to collect, I'm just guessing it's probably under 10%. 25% was, I think, 800 and some thousand.
Yes.
So just to give everyone a little perspective on that.
Mike?
Yeah, I've got two questions for Mr. Zook. I know the answer to one of them, but I want to get it on the record. And the other one I don't know the answer to. So the first question is, this body tonight, we are recommending a budget to the Urban Renewal Commission. We're not approving a final budget, but we're recommending a budget to the Urban Renewal Commission, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then my second question is, whatever we collect, we could, in theory, depending on the direction the Urban Renewal Commission decides on, unwind that back to July 1st and disperse those funds to the underlying agencies, as opposed to if we collect less and decide, gee, we wish we hadn't done that, we're not going to be able to go and claw that money back. I hope that was a clear question. What I'm asking is, if we collected whatever amount we collected and determined based on what the Urban Renewal Commission decides of the future of the commission, we don't need that. We could unwind that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You could also unwind every dollar collected to date in the entire life of the thing itself.
What do you mean by the word unwind? I'm not.
Redistribute to the taxing entity.
I mean, my question was, so on July 1st, Mr. Zook will know exactly how much our beginning fund balance is. He'll know how much we collect during 2020, during the upcoming biennium. And we could, as an Urban Renewal Commission, decide to, I guess you could say refund all, as Commissioner O'Donnell said, all or part of that money back to those agencies. Should that be the direction of the Urban Renewal Commission?
Lori had her hand up.
Lori?
What would end up with the properties that are being managed and maintained if the litigation goes through and if?
I'm sorry, can you start off?
Yes, I'm sorry. What would happen to the properties that are being managed and maintained by the Urban Renewal Fund if we have to unwind it all?
Yeah, I think that's where we would get into a process of liquidating all the assets. And so, you know, I think in the simplest, it would move back to the city.
Okay.
From the district to the city, such as, let's say, the Amtrak station. You know, if you know, there's two houses. If, let's say, the district said, you know, we want to get those back to the city, rather than saying, let's just put them up for sale, take the assets, put it in the total amount of money in the district, and then redistribute those back. So it kind of depends, but you know, in the simplest form, there would be some discussion about returning it, buying it, sending it back to the city as the district was close to it.
Are the two houses, I'm sorry, are the two houses residential? Are they in good shape?
Residential.
Yes. They're currently being rented, they're livable?
Correct.
Okay.
Doug?
Yeah. Some of the things that Commissioner referred to here probably could be covered in the carryover. One thing that I would like to mention is that of the projects we listed, we've got one in which there is a commitment from the federal government for, I think, $2 million, the quiet zone. And there's a match required of $500,000. I think that needs to come through the system. So the logic for that particular request was that the quiet zone may tend to dissuade people from developing mixed-use facilities downtown and so forth. And what it is actually having a silent zone for trains going by there on 10th Street, so that the whistle is blowing all the time.
Those 10th and 12th is where we all have crossings. Every place we have a crossing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Within the urban renewal district. Yeah.
All the crossings are in the urban renewal district.
Because so we did receive $2 million from the federal government as part of the appropriations process.
Just, I think there's an exception in crossing, and that's in Canadian.
Yeah, and so we, the city or the district, cannot handle federal funds of that type for transportation. So we go through Oregon Department of Transportation. We're negotiating with them right now. The original estimate on that project, so it was $2 million from the federal government. We had $600,000 match requirement. So the estimate on that project was 2.6. We're working with ODOT. We're negotiating with ODOT right now, and the cost of that is nearly doubled. So that is something that we're looking at.
Sean?
Yeah, so I just have a couple questions. So why, this is for Mr. Zook, why 2% for a property tax increase? You almost get 3%.
It's a conservative number. Yeah. The budget itself increased by 2%, but that was based on last year's numbers, and the budget for this current biennium was actually higher than what the tax assessor actually turned over.
Okay.
So it was a little bit of a higher estimate than what we ended up getting. So the difference is really about, it's the comparison in the budget is 2%. But
okay.
Yeah.
And I guess how this budget's kind of laid out, it's basically saying that for Mr. Neely, that you have $12 million available for projects in the first year. You would have another $3 million or $15 million total for the biennium, but $3 million. But you have basically, by November, you would have $12 million available. Then you wouldn't have to, the debt and the vote and all that kind of stuff, but you would still be able to do that list of projects, get a good start on the first few. I don't know. You would have money for projects. And if we don't take the full TIF, that's just putting the district, if it stays open, it will take it that much longer to close. If you're trying to get a maximum indebtedness on what you're spending, and the quickest way to do that is to do projects and get a higher rate of return to them. Actually, more money to spend to actually close it down to help all the other overlapping districts. We're just basically kicking the can down the road even longer for a district that's been open since 2007 that hasn't really done a whole lot. But now we have a pot of money, a list of projects. We don't need to take out all the debt to do a good number of those projects. We actually have the cash. We don't have to pay interest on it now because it's just cash. Am I missing anything?
No, I think, okay. I 100% agree. I think the hard part is that there's a political component to this. That
No, I got that.
That's, I think, why we're creating these scenarios, is to try to be respectful of the discussion and the decision, because it's not your typical, straight up budget.
And basically, we're in a state of limbo, right? We can't go forward. We can't do anything. We need some quick decisions. We need, we've got this voter approval, which obviously the big proposal didn't go. Maybe a smaller one would go or would not. We don't know. We don't know what the people of Oregon City want. You want this closed? Do you want to do a small project? You obviously don't want to do a large project. So I kind of lean toward what the mayor was saying. I'm trying to be respectful of what Lori said and others about we have some maintenance costs and some administrative costs, which are also subject of a lawsuit. I'm down in that. Even if we went, those are nice numbers, but even 30%, we'd end up with just under $1 million. And I think we'll send a message to the political component of that. Is it sends a message to the citizens that we're listening. And we'll do this while we're resolving the future of this urban renewal plan. Urban renewal can continue on. Let's not say the urban renewal doesn't have to disappear. This particular plan could disappear, but urban renewal could remain, correct? We could move on. We could say, let's open another district. So I know that's a lot of information for those who haven't been immersed in this for multiple years, but I'm trying.
Well, I don't disagree with you, Mr. O'Donnell, but I think there's things we can still do. Again, speaking as the agency, not as the budget committee, that can be done while we're waiting for these decisions. I totally agree with you. We've done some projects, but I also concur with Commissioner Neely that as somebody who lives near the area, I wouldn't say that, I like the train noise, but not everybody does. And I think it would go a long way to facilitating, making our community more livable by continuing with that project. I live right there. I hear it all the time. I hardly hear it now, but I understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea. So getting a quiet zone is something that a lot of jurisdictions, regardless whether they have a renewal or not, are pursuing. And it's a matter of pushing our friends at ODOT and pushing our friends at Union Pacific to make it happen. And I really think that we can make it happen.
So are you leaning towards a percentage or a number that would give us the matching funds for the quiet zone?
That's why
and for the administrative.
Yes, that's why I'm suggesting reducing it down to the 25%.
I just want everybody to be clear what your goal is.
Yeah. So I think that's a project. I hate to lose, the federal government doesn't often give money, and we have it. We had a lot of hard work by our congressional representative to get that money, and if it goes to waste, it goes to waste. Some other community, I'd rather have Oregon City have it than give it to somebody else. And we have another proposal that our current congressional representative is working on, but that's down the road, but at least we know we have that money in hand. It's ours.
Lori?
Can you just confirm that we are not bound to go out to vote for a project? We can use the funds at the moment, continue to fund the litigation, or we tie down until litigation settles?
You know, my opinion is that until litigation is settled, I feel.
We're on hold.
I can't recommend to you that we go sell $44 million in bonds. Right?
I'm not
And I
saying that,
can't-
but there,
There's also a limitation that I can't, you know, we can't enter into an agreement over 1 year. So there are serious limitations in the existing measure in section 59.
So until that's settled, we can't, we really are just.
Well, no, look, okay, you know, playing the flip side of it is we could go de jure borrow. I could go to US Bank tomorrow. Let's say we need $2 million. We take out a loan for $2 million. I pay it back the next day. The money's been paid for with TIF and we can spend the money, right? I think that was the intent of the charter, but the way it's written, that would comply.
But if
right?
we
So I'm
wanted
trying
to
to
tackle
be
the quiet zone, theoretically, are we still locked into not until it's settled?
I feel that we probably are, yes.
This 600,000 that we would have to match, I mean, if we collected zero, we still have that, right? Am I missing something?
No, we do. We have, I agree. There's $9 million in cash sitting there, yes.
Yeah.
So, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Zook, how does reducing this levy affect the average taxpayer?
It does not.
So you can reduce it to 25% and they still pay 100% of their tax bill. Right. 97% they pay early, but.
Yeah, but there's a counter argument to that.
I know.
Well, everybody should know. Counter argument is when you get things like that last fire bond, possibly if they were drawing what they would be allocated instead of going to urban renewal or other things, maybe they don't have to put those on the ballot measure. So it would have been taxes avoided. Do you disagree with that?
I do.
I guess I don't disagree or agree. I would say that I think the estimate is that if we shut down the fire district, we'd get about $500,000 a year. They asked for 52 cents, which I think was 51 firefighters. 64 firefighters. So, I mean, yes, overtime. I mean, they're asking for much more.
Well, let's put it this way. We all sat in the Oregon City Budget Committee, most of us. What would Oregon City get if it was not being diverted to urban renewal?
900.
Something.
950,000 minus the 220, so
sure.
7/10.
We don't have the other tax districts saying that we should close down the urban renewal district, and I think there's a specific reason for it. Were we to do some of those big projects successfully, the value of that land would have gone up considerably, and the districts would have received the great benefit of that. I think it's the reason why the taxing districts do not come after urban renewal. They could, the unions could, in fact, if they wanted to oppose urban renewal, but they don't. And I think that's the reason they don't, is because they realize are truly the lands that can't be built on. We wanted to make it possible to do so. And so that's one of the reasons that I don't think the other taxing districts opposed what we were trying to do.
But is it not true that those districts would not realize the increased value of those properties until such time as the districts were closed and the money's distributed? They don't realize that value during the life of the district.
That's right.
Yeah, I just want to put it all out there.
Lori, did you have any additional?
more of just a synthesizing thought was, it sounds like we can't spend any money through 2023, 2024, because we are locked in through litigation. So what's everyone's appetite for maybe pausing or withholding the 25% level levy? Just to put that out there as a motion for discussion.
I'd propose 10 because I said like the expense items I mentioned, that rough math is 10% to pay for those things. That includes the maintenance on things that agency already owns. So we're not neglecting that, which I don't think anyone would want to do that. We're going to need a lot of legal funds. It's probably a low number to be honest, I think, but I would say 10 because that covers it and also shows the voters that while this is in question, we're not just taking money for no reason. Like, there's really no reason to, in my opinion, to take more than that during this time when we don't know what's going to happen.
Mathematically, 10 would get you about $331,000.
Yeah, and I said 397. So I mean, we can do 12, whatever. I would say I would propose 12.
Just to 12%?
12% to cover our existing.
I might do 18 just to cover legal. I might do 18% just to cover legal.
Well, we do have money. I mean, there's a lot of money in the bank, so.
But it's for capital.
Are there any other?
Well, we don't have any motions, so.
No, I'm just wondering.
I'll second your motion, just to get us off the dime.
Just to get us starting point. Are we okay with moving forward with a tax levy of less than 25%? We'll start there.
Your motion?
I second it.
It's resent an advisory.
Yeah, the temperature check.
You want to throw out a number or no number this time?
15%, how's that? Just to get a temperature check, 15.
Okay, so we're going for.
Can I ask a question before we take that vote? It's a question for Mr. Zook or Mr. Conkle. As Mayor McGriff pointed out, we have other properties other than the rental properties that require maintenance and that we probably haven't aimed to the degree that we should have. I'm thinking particular in what property at 10th and Main looks like on occasion with weeds and such. So my question is, I don't see specifically on this budget funds for maintenance of urban renewal owned properties other than the rental properties. Is there any amount in this budget for that? And I think that would need to be included in whatever amount we collect.
Thank you.
So the other properties that we have 10th and Main, we have 12th and Main that are not rented. Well, actually 12th and Main right now is being rented, but they have to put it back in its condition that they got it in. It's being used for construction project. We don't rent the Amtrak station, that's ours. The two houses are rented. The Clackamas landscape is rented.
We've traditionally charged the maintenance component back to the general fund rather than use urban renewal funds on maintenance.
We need to use some of that on the Amtrak station, the urban renewal money.
Well, I think we would want to have a discussion with the Urban Renewal Commission on, the use of urban renewal funds for maintenance rather than the rental income from the rental properties. You can use much more freely than you can the TIF that's created. So to avoid this, we've done Amtrak maintenance through either stormwater maintenance ponds, through the general fund, public works, stormwater, or economic development.
Good question. I know we got a motion before us, but I wanted to ask if we sold those properties, they would not be restricted to the urban renewal agency because these are for any purposes they want to.
If we sold,
The urban renewal own property
okay, if we sold them
Where would the funds go?
to the urban renewal.
to the urban renewal district.
So, yeah, so those are not encumbered by any of the court decisions or anything before us.
No.
Okay.
We know restrictions on their use because they're not generated. That might be a
We
two-step.
probably have to go back and look at how they were purchased.
Yeah. Could you restate your motion for the third time?
Yes, my motion was to approve a tax levy of 15%, approximately $500,000 for the biennium until litigation settles, and then we can figure out next steps.
Was that seconded?
Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
We'll call the question.
All right, Chair Julie Hernandez,
Abstain.
Committee Member William Peterson,
No.
Committee Member Casey Flesh,
No.
Committee Member Andy Smith,
Yes.
Committee Member Kyle Arnhart,
Yes.
Committee Member Lori Arinello,
Yes.
Committee Member Doug Neely,
Yes.
Committee Member Sean Cross,
No.
Committee Member Adam Morrow,
No.
Committee Member Frank O'Donnell,
Yes.
Committee Member Mike Mitchell,
No.
Committee Member Rocky Smith,
No.
and Committee Member Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion fails.
Motion fails.
It was 661.
661.
We need
Abstain.
8.
Abstain.
Madam Chair, I move that we levy 10%.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, for the vote, Committee Member Julie Hernandez,
Abstain.
Committee Member William Peterson,
No.
Committee Member Committee Member Casey Flesh,
Yes.
Committee Member Andy Smith,
Yes.
Committee Member Kyle Arnhart,
Yes.
Committee Member Lori Arinello,
No.
Committee Member Doug Neely,
Yes.
Committee Member Sean Cross, Committee Member Adam Morrow,
No.
Committee Member Frank O'Donnell,
Yes.
Committee Member Mike Mitchell,
No.
Committee Member Rocky Smith,
No.
and Committee Member Denise McGriff.
No.
So obviously going that way changes the vote. So then we should go the other way and see what we get.
Can I
Or zero.
interject?
Or 0.
Obviously, this is a 14-body commission or committee, 14-member committee. You need 8, regardless of who's present. 8 is obviously more than half, but even if there were, 12 of you here, you would still need 8, not the majority of those present.
Thank you
So,
for the clarification.
yeah, I mean, obviously, Mr. Gifford's absence tonight doesn't move that needle because you would still have an 8-7, ultimate decision. But you do definitely need 8 yes votes to pass anything at this budget committee.
Okay, well, I'll go back and make a motion that we levy 25%.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
Did you get a second?
I'll second it.
Chair,
With the previous caveat.
Chair Julie Hernandez,
Yes.
Committee Member William Peterson,
No.
Committee Member Flesh,
No.
Committee Member Smith,
No.
Committee Member Arnhart,
Yes.
Committee Member Arinello,
No.
Committee Member Neely,
Yes.
Committee Member Cross, Committee Member Morrow,
No.
Committee Member O'Donnell,
No.
Committee Member Mitchell,
Yeah.
Committee Member Smith Jr.,
No.
and Committee Member McGriff.
Aye. Hey, folks, we got to get something. I don't want to be here all night.
If I may ask you a question, what amount of funds do you want to have on hand should the quiet zone become a reality to cover our maintenance and to cover whatever legal there is? Is there a targeted number for that?
That's why I was recommending the 25. I mean, we could go to 20 and we'd still be covered. That's,
20 gives us 662.
yeah, I would support that.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to move on.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll say, we are negotiating with ODOT and the number is going to be higher. We did set aside 600,000 of ARPA funds for the quiet zone. But this project was also identified as an urban renewal commission project. As Mr. Budget Committee Member Flesh, we have cash. So the exact number, don't feel compelled, like we had to come up with $1 million, like we had to collect $2 million. If we're going to do the project, we actually have $9 million in cash. Does that make sense?
So this discussion on these percentages is kind of moot because you've got money on hand.
That's what I was just gonna ask that. I can't, like, we have money on hand, so we shouldn't need to have an additional tax levy to cover the funds if there already is money on hand. And this is an important project for the commission to complete. And if we have, you said 2.6, how much is the bullet from the federal funds, and then the 2 million from the federal funds, 600,000 from the ARPA funds. So they have $9 million to be able to match whatever is missing from that side already on hand. And so needing to add an additional levy, unless if you're wanting to replace the funds so that you're not losing it, there is cash on hand to be able to complete the project.
And I guess
So we don't need additional funding to complete it. The additional funding would be to backfill whatever funds were used for it.
And I also think that if this budget committee and the Urban Renewal Commission approves zero, an argument could be made you're shutting down the district.
Go there.
So I just want that out there too.
Well, obviously from the vote, as we move toward the lower number, there's less support. So the question is, with all that's been said, what percentage should be proposed that we can get our 8 votes? Knowing what we know now that we already have money, what number can everybody agree on?
Why don't we just go around the room like we did at our budget committee and ask people what their number is? That would give us some indication.
If it would be easier for that discussion to be stated in the form of how much revenue you want to collect rather than guessing on the percentage, I can tell you the percentage. Yeah. When this body makes a motion to approve the budget and levy the tax, if it's anything less than the full amount, you will need to state essentially the amount of incremental tax value that we will send to the assessor, and then they will do the math. What you see on the screen is my estimate, but I don't, the assessor does the actual math. So in the event that, like, as you're going around this room, you might think about the tax levy, 25% will bring in approximately a levy of 808. We hope to see 782,000. If it's easier for this body to just simply state, I want to see, 500,000 or 200,000 or whatever, I can back into it. So that might be the better way than 15%, 13%, 12.5%, 12.25%.
Either way, we
Yeah.
A fellow member just said, we don't need any, really.
I think the only reason that we've gotten down, if you can actually levy zero, but again, the risk there is the inherent appearance and or potential legal argument that you are actually in effect closing in the district. I think I talked with another urban renewal financier expert today, and that was some of his comments. You can also go and levy, under levy by whatever percentage you want, and then in the next year you can bring it back up to the full maximum. So just keep in mind that the levy that this budget committee states will actually be for 2 years, but it will be separately stated per year. That's why there's 2 on there. So we've been talking about the first year. If that first year is effectively, you want to keep the district open, I'd suggest, levy, 2%, whatever. If you think that you want to continue on into year 2, you can levy the higher amount and take it back up. The other caveat here that I'll just mention as far as how budget law goes is that what this body does and recommends out to the Urban Renewal Commission as a whole, the Urban Renewal Commission can independently take action on that and adopt a different budget. If the amount coming out of this budget committee is low and they want to subsequently raise it, any tax increase will require them to have 2 public hearings. The first public hearing on approximately June 7th will be to have a hearing on what the budget committee approved. The Urban Renewal Commission decided at that point they want to raise the taxes. They then have to have a subsequent hearing with advertisement, and then they would come back approximately June 21st and have that second hearing for the public, and then thus levy the higher amount. If this body wants to, levy the full tax, the maximum tax, and then the Urban Renewal Commission wants to drop it, they only have to do it once. So the principle is if this body would reduce the tax and then the commission wants to raise it, 2 hearings. So, that's getting ahead to what the Urban Renewal Commission, which is half of this committee, is going to have to deal with, at this meeting.
Mr. Neely?
I think it's a good idea for everybody to make a statement, because if in fact the body as a whole feels that should be closed, they can recommend 0. But I'd be happy to start my guess if you want to start at that.
Sure.
500,000. Or the buy-in.
You said 900,000?
5.
Oh, 5, okay, sorry. 5 per year. Hearing is like.
Well, yeah, we're really voting to the biennial amount, but I'm saying 500,000.
Collect 500, collect 500.
500 over the 2 years.
So roughly 250 and 250.
Yes.
I'll second that for a vote. Let's see where it goes.
Well, we're
No,
supposed
we're
to
just-
go around
we're
and
doing
get
it
our
because-
guesses
Okay.
or desires or whatever.
All right, I'll go.
So my desire,
All right.
but.
I'm fine with that number.
The reason I'm asking that we go through this, it may well be that the majority of the people want to see it closed and they have the opportunity to say 0.
I want to see it remain open and figure out what direction we can go legally with it for the next 2 years. And I'm in favor of supporting funding it minimally until we get that direction. So I am comfortable with 500,000 per year, 1 million for the biennium.
That's 1 million for the 2 years or just?
For the 500,000 for the 2 years.
So we have 2, now we have 2 on the table.
The thing is.
500 over the biennium and $1 million.
We voted on 10% and that was more than 500,000. Bringing it down a little bit more.
I definitely want to see it open, and I would support what Doug said, so 500 over the course of 2 years.
I'm going to go yield, since Mr. Mitchell's not in the row. Go ahead, Mike, and then I'll do mine. So you can speak. I want to make sure you get to hear you.
As I add up the expenses in the budget for the biennium, other than the capital outlay, it's $858,000. So I want to support an amount that at least covers those expenses. So I'd be in favor of $1 million for the biennium.
Could I ask a question? The 9 million still is with us, right? 9 million is still with us, no matter what.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. I support leaving the district open. I'm not sure I'm tied to a specific number, but I'll come back around.
I support 0 because there's money in the district while these things play out over the next couple of years. And to ask taxpayers to throw money at it when nothing is going to be accomplished the next couple of years. I just can't do that, so I support 0.
I support the full amount because just given the simple fact that if the litigation goes a certain way, then it can all be returned to the special taxing districts. It can all be returned. But if we move forward with a lower rate and we find ourselves in a place where the judge upholds the prior decision, then it leaves us in a worse off position with investments in the future.
That'll put me in a tough bind going next up these. I am supportive of the commission. I want to be able to keep it open, the agency. I think it's important for the future growth for Oregon City. I think we do have cash on hand to be completing projects, so waiting until we see what happens, I think we can get some projects completed. I think it's important that those get moved forward. And then Adam came along and made a very good point that, and also Mr. Zook, he also mentioned that if we vote with the maximum levy, if litigation goes a certain way, it can be returned. That's great news. It's not a permanent, we're sticking it to everybody. Also, if it goes into the agency and they decide that they don't need it or they don't want that much, they can easily bring it down in one meeting, right? Versus two, is that correct? So it's a lot easier of a process for that. I was supportive of the $1 million, but then also knowing that we do need to be funding, projects. We need to be funding for, I don't agree entirely on some of these expenses here, but I think that being able to fund and making sure that there is enough capital money available to complete the projects, I think it's important. So I am supportive of the maximum. Thank you, Adam, for changing my mind. I'm not gonna vote for zero though, I'll say that.
I'm supportive of the possibility of keeping the district open, but I'm somewhere between $1 and 1%.
So one, I like it.
It's essentially zero. My approach would be to fund the operating costs in the first year and then go to the full levy in the second year, with the acknowledgement that the commission will make the decision whether or not to go forward and how to move the district forward. The taxpayer will receive no significant change regardless of what we do here. There will be no impact on their income. There will be no impact in your school districts when you give the school districts money. All that will do is offset the state shared revenues that would otherwise be coming into those school districts. That's the largest single part of what your tax increment tax return is. So I think it's pretty important for us to acknowledge that in the first year, doing something to recognize the vote that's taken place, I think is perfectly appropriate, making that 25% or 1%, I don't care. In the second year, I think you should plan 100% and then let the commission make the decision after all of the rest of this milieu is resolved, make the decision to go forward. But don't hamstring your commission.
Can I, for clarification, I don't understand where you brought in the school district funding. They get, as you know, because you've been in the business longer than I have, that money comes from a completely different source.
Absolutely does. My point is, if tax increment is to be returned to the underlying taxing entity,
right?
And you're sending money back to the school districts, which are the largest single taxing entity, that money then has to offset state shared revenues in the ensuing year.
Which means
it's a net zero.
Which they get accrued.
Zero.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes no difference.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, because the school fund is funded completely differently in this, and believe me, the state will look at every opportunity to say, oh, you got $5, we're gonna take $5 away from you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
I would support a 1 million Biennial budget.
I kind of agree with Adam. I think anything short of the maximum at this point is kind of, like I said, kicking the can that we've been kicking it for a very long time. We can give the money back if we have to, but it's hard to get it. There's what we get, like 80, 90, $100 million worth of projects. So if we can do projects, that means if we borrow the extra $3 million, if we do a minimum first year and a max the second year, that's $3 million. What is $3 million over 20 or 25 years at 5% interest versus just having the cash on hand? It's not going to hurt the taxpayer at all, but having money in the bank to do the projects actually offsets the costs of most of the projects up front very quickly. I mean, it's the financing and all that stuff that costs so much in most of these projects.
Thank you. And the point was already made about the schools, which thank you for that. And then earlier it was brought up about the recent fire levy, and it was noted that the amount that they went out for was more than the amount that is being taken out, at least by Oregon City. And I would just note that we live in a state that has a lot of influence by unions. And if the firefighters union, and for all of the pro fire levy, you could all see they were paid for by the firefighters union. They could have also used that money to campaign to shut down the district, our urban renewal district. When I first got on here and I was talking to County Commissioner Paul Savis about urban renewal stuff, he said, well, you need to talk to the fire districts because they're the ones who get really fired up.
They get fired up?
They get fired up, if you will, about urban renewal because of the diversion of tax funds. But going throughout this whole process with the updating of the plan, I haven't heard a single thing from them. And so again, I'll say they had the opportunity to advocate in a different direction, and they did not. They decided to go out for a levy that was higher than the amount that is being diverted right now from urban renewal. So I just wanted to note that.
Let me append that as well. They did not, they supported our levy. The union people came in and said that they would not oppose it. They understood what the benefit of it was. There were several meetings that I had also with the new chief, the new fire chief. So that was never an issue. So just.
And again, bringing it up to the max level gets us to a point where we're shutting down the district sooner and they're getting their returns sooner.
So it was inconclusive.
250,000 per year, 3, 500,000 per year, 3, 0 per year, 1, max, 3, $1, 1 operating cost, and then the max 1.
Can I make a proposal? And that proposal, we mull this over for another week or so, and, well, I can make the proposal. You don't say no. I mean, we could adjourn and recess to June 1st, and mull this over, all right? And perhaps come back with, a lot of the suggestions here are far better than mine, I think. But mull over and come back with thoughts about it. And so I'm going to move that we adjourn to June 1st, continue this discussion, because I'm not sure we're going to go anywhere at this point. So that's a motion.
Sorry, was that a motion or?
Second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you?
I'm not seconding.
Yeah, I can't second. I'm not going to be here, and I definitely want to participate in this. I will not be back until June the 4th, so I would not want to, I'd say we either make it, I think we have the ability to make a decision. We have to have some people compromise, but again, this is a recommendation, and the Urban Renewal Commission is going to have to talk about it. So if we can come up with a recommendation that everybody can live with, somewhere in the middle. To me, that is preferable than pushing the rock down the road.
So motion's been made but not seconded, Madam Chair.
I'm moving for 250,000.
Per year.
Per year. That's what I'm
The
saying.
motion is to adjourn.
If there is
So going back to discussion.
he's making a motion.
Yeah, and that's 250,000 per year. That's looking at the numbers he had here.
Can you restate your motion, please?
I'm making a motion for 250,000 a year.
For a second.
I'll second.
Committee Member Julie Hernandez.
No.
Committee Member Peterson.
No.
Committee Member Flesch.
Yes.
Committee Member Smith.
No.
Committee Member Arnhart.
No.
Committee Member Arenello.
No.
Committee Member Neely.
Aye.
Committee Member Cross.
No.
Committee Member Morrow.
No.
Committee Member O'Donnell.
Yes.
Committee Member Mitchell.
No.
Committee Member Smith Jr.
No.
And Committee Member McGriff.
No. Okay, let's get another number.
Is there a motion for a full amount?
So moved.
Committee Member Hernandez.
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yes.
Committee Member Flesch.
No.
Committee Member Smith.
Yes.
Committee Member Arnhart.
Yes.
Committee Member Arinello.
No.
Committee Member Neely.
Yes.
Committee Member Cross.
Yes.
Committee Member Morrow.
Yes.
Committee Member O'Donnell.
No.
Committee Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Committee Member Smith Jr.
No.
Committee Member McGriff.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I got 9.
9-4. So
That's for the full amount, the maximum levy?
that was the motion as I understood it.
Yes. I'd like to move, we make a recommendation of that to the Urban Renewal Commission.
So can
Oh, sorry.
we take a 5-minute break? We need to, well, I guess if we're doing the max though, we just want to make sure that we have the motion correct.
Actually, yeah, if you are, if the commission or the committee is going to move forward with that, the motion in your agenda is pre-scripted for that to accomplish what you just agreed on. So in that case, we wouldn't need to take a break and calculate.
Yeah.
Keep in mind though that the tax levy as stated here for both years, the commission again will have an opportunity to take an action on that. Once the commission will make that decision in, before June 30th, that will be binding for the 2 years. They don't, just so you know, that they don't have an opportunity during the 2 years to come back and change it at that point. So.
So we did the approval of the urban renewal budget.
Okay. I move to approve the 2023-2025 biennial budget in the amount of $15,927,600 as proposed and amended to be forwarded to the Urban Renewal Commission for adoption and establish that the maximum amount of tax from the Division of Taxes shall be levied for the fiscal years ending 2024 and 2025.
Second.
Committee Member Hernandez.
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yes.
Committee Member Flesch.
No.
Committee Member Smith.
Yes.
Committee Member Arnhart.
Yes.
Committee Member Arinello.
No.
Committee Member Neely.
Yes.
Committee Member Cross.
Yes.
Committee Member Morrow.
Yes.
Committee Member O'Donnell.
No.
Committee Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Committee Member Smith Jr.
No.
And Committee Member McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion carries 9-4.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All abstain? All no? Motion passes.
Thanks, Mike.
I have no idea.
What message?
Well, I keep money shuts it down.
Strange man.